The alarm bells rang loud across the huge space station. Everyone in the meeting room went quiet. Ambassador Zixthon was a snake-like creature from the Kravoth Empire. His body coiled tight around his stand. His skin changed colors, showing he was nervous. Through the big window, he could see a small human ship coming closer. It looked tiny next to the giant warships of other alien races. Captain Daniel Harris stood on his ship called the Aurora. He watched the space station get bigger on his screen. His crew had been traveling for 3 long months to reach this place. They carried Earth's formal request to join the Galactic Unity. This was the first real meeting between humans and aliens. Daniel felt heavy pressure on his shoulders. The future of all humans depended on what happened here. Lieutenant Kate Morrison sat at the communications desk. She looked up at Daniel and said they were getting a message from station security. The station wanted them to turn off all their weapons before they could dock. Daniel thought for a moment, then nodded. He told Kate to do what they asked. He wanted to show the aliens that humans came in peace. The Aurora flew slowly through the docking bay. Daniel noticed the big guns following their ship's every move. Armed guards from many different alien species lined the hallways. Each one carried strange and dangerous-looking weapons. The message was clear to Daniel. The aliens did not trust humans yet. 5 humans walked off the ship together. Captain Daniel Harris led the team. Dr. Lisa Chen was a scientist who studied alien life. Commander Jake Peterson was in charge of security. Helen Martinez was the main diplomat who would do most of the talking. Sophie Brooks was a young engineer who worked on translation machines. They all wore clean uniforms and tried to look confident. As they walked through the station's hallways, Sophie's eyes went wide. She had never seen so many different types of aliens. Huge bear-like creatures with 6 legs walked past them. Floating jellyfish beings drifted through special air zones. Bug-like soldiers marched in perfect lines. Everything looked dangerous and powerful. Sophie whispered to Lisa that all the aliens looked scary. Lisa nodded and told her something important. She said that every species in the Galactic Unity came from predator animals on their home planets. They were all hunters at the top of their food chains. Now humans had to prove they belonged with these dangerous species. The council meeting room was beautiful and huge. It was a giant round room with seats going up like stairs. Representatives from 47 different alien species sat watching. In the middle was a floating screen that showed translations in real time. The humans were led to a small platform near the door. They stood lower than everyone else. It was clear they were begging to join, not asking, as equals. High Chancellor Vormath stood up from his throne in the center. He was huge and tall with 4 arms and hard shell-like armor covering his body. His words came out as clicks and chirps, but a translation machine turned them into flat English that had no emotion. He spoke to the humans. He said they wanted to join the Galactic Unity. But first they had to prove they were worthy. They had to show they were strong enough and wise enough to stand with the civilized species of the galaxy. Helen stepped forward. Her voice was steady even though she felt scared. She said, "Humans came to offer knowledge, culture, and friendship to the galaxy. They did not come to prove their strength through violence." Her words sounded nice and peaceful. A wave of sounds that might have been laughter went through the room. Ambassador Zixthon uncoiled his snake body a little. His translation device made a hissing sound that showed he was amused. He repeated Helen's words with mockery. Friendship, knowledge. He said humans spoke like prey animals. Maybe that's what they were. Perhaps humans were just farmers and gatherers who got lucky and found space travel by accident instead of earning it. Daniel felt Jake become tense beside him. The security chief's hand moved toward where his gun would normally be, but station security had taken all their weapons before they entered. Jake's hand found nothing. The aliens noticed this movement. They saw Jake reaching for a weapon that was not there. Vormath spoke again. He said the human warrior reached for a missing weapon. Maybe humans had some predator instinct after all, but words and small movements meant nothing. The humans would be tested properly. He would make sure of it. The floating screen changed to show a thick jungle environment. Vormath explained that the station had a biodome level, where they kept plants and animals from many different worlds. The humans would be given 1 day to survive among the wildlife. If they could prove they were truly apex predators, the council might reconsider their application to join the Unity. Lisa's scientific brain immediately understood the danger. She started to speak about the wildlife from multiple worlds. The biochemistry alone could be deadly, she said. Different proteins, unknown poisons, things that would not work with human biology. Everything could kill them in ways they never imagined. Vormath interrupted her. He said that was exactly the point. A true predator adapts or dies. That was the law of nature. That was also the law of the Unity. Only the strong survived. Only those who could handle any environment deserved to be here. Daniel looked at each member of his team. Sophie's face had lost all its color. She looked terrified. Jake's jaw was tight with determination. He was ready to fight. Lisa was already doing math in her head, trying to figure out how to survive. Helen's calm, diplomatic face had cracked. Real fear showed through now. Daniel spoke quietly but clearly. He said they accepted the challenge. But he wanted the Chancellor to know something important. Humanity did not reach the stars through hunting and killing alone. Humans survived because they learned to think. They learned to work together. They learned to face impossible situations, with nothing but their minds and their will to keep going no matter what. Vormath's mouth parts clicked together. It might have been approval or it might have been dismissal. He said they would see if humans were telling the truth. Time would tell if Daniel's words meant anything. The test would begin soon. The council meeting ended. Guards came to escort the humans to the biodome level. As they walked, Daniel thought about Earth. He thought about all the people depending on them. His wife and children back home. The billions of humans who wanted to explore the stars and meet new friends. Everything rested on the next 24 hours. Jake walked beside Daniel and spoke in a low voice. He said this was a setup. The aliens wanted them to fail. They wanted to prove humans were weak. Jake thought the whole test was designed to be impossible. Daniel nodded. He knew Jake was probably right, but they had no choice now. They had to try. Helen caught up with them. She whispered that she was scared. This was different from diplomatic negotiations. She was trained to use words to solve problems. But words would not work against wild animals that wanted to kill them. Daniel tried to comfort her. He said they would use their minds. Humans were smart. They could figure things out. They had survived worse back on Earth. Sophie was quiet as they walked. She kept looking at her engineering tools. She was thinking about how to use technology to help them survive. Maybe she could build something. Maybe she could hack into the station's systems. Her mind raced with possibilities. Lisa stayed close to Daniel. She told him quietly that this was not fair. The aliens evolved on their own planets. They understood their own predators. But humans were about to face creatures from dozens of different worlds. Creatures with biology they could not understand. Creatures with weapons and abilities humans had never seen. The odds were terrible. They reached the entrance to the biodome. The door was huge and made of some kind of metal that looked indestructible. A guard handed them each a small survival kit. Inside was a water filter, a thermal blanket, and a distress beacon. The guard explained that if they used the beacon, help would come immediately. But using it would mean failure. It would mean humans were not worthy of joining the Galactic Unity. Daniel took the kit and looked at his team. He saw fear in their eyes, but he also saw determination. They were human. They came from a species that had survived ice ages and plagues and wars. They had climbed from caves to spaceships. They would not give up now. The door to the biodome began to open. Hot, humid air rushed out. The sounds of alien wildlife echoed from inside. Roars and screeches and sounds that had no name filled the air. Daniel took a deep breath. He looked at his team one more time. Then he stepped forward into the unknown. The others followed. The door closed behind them with a heavy thud. The test had begun. The biodome entrance hissed open. A wall of hot, wet air hit them in the face. Strange sounds filled their ears. Animal calls and movements from creatures they had never seen before. The humans stood at the edge, looking into the alien jungle. Each person carried only the basic survival kit the station had given them: a water filter, a thermal blanket, and the distress beacon that would end everything if they pressed it. Jake pointed up at the trees. He told everyone that observation cameras were watching. He could see the sensor nodes hidden in the artificial branches. The aliens would watch everything they did. Every mistake would be recorded. Every moment of fear would be seen. Daniel nodded and said that was good. They should give the aliens a show they would never forget. He turned to Lisa and asked what they were dealing with. Lisa was already scanning the environment with her handheld device. The small machine beeped and showed information on its screen. Lisa explained what she saw. There were 3 different zones in the biodome. To the north was extreme heat, probably desert creatures that liked hot weather. To the east was a normal temperature zone, but her device picked up electromagnetic readings. Something there could probably make electricity naturally. Straight ahead was thick jungle. Dense plants and trees created a maze of green. Helen asked what Lisa recommended. Lisa rattled off standard wilderness survival advice. Find water first. Build shelter second. Avoid contact with the local animals until they understood behavior patterns. She added that this was like normal survival training. Except everything here could probably kill them in ways they had never imagined. Sophie pulled out her engineering toolkit. She said she could rig some basic warning systems from the sensor nodes. If the aliens were watching them anyway, they might as well use that technology to help themselves. Maybe she could tap into the feeds and get advance warning when predators were nearby. Daniel smiled. He said that was the human spirit. That was why they would succeed. They chose the jungle biome because plants meant water and multiple places to hide. As they pushed through the alien plants, the sounds of the biodome grew louder. Screeches, roars, and sounds that had no equivalent on Earth echoed through the artificial canopy above their heads. Jake suddenly whispered for everyone to stop. He froze in place. His military training made him sensitive to movement and danger. Through the purple-colored leaves, something was moving. It was about the size of a large dog, but that was where the similarity ended. The creature had 6 legs and a ridge of bony plates along its spine. Its head turned toward them. 3 eyes gleamed with intelligent hunger. Lisa breathed quietly. She told everyone not to move. She needed to identify what it was. Her scanner hummed as it analyzed the creature. The thing took a step toward them. Then another step. Its nose holes flared as it processed their scent. Daniel could see its muscles getting ready to jump. This was a predator preparing to attack, Lisa whispered urgently. It was a Kravoth hunting beast, a young one, probably 6 months old. On their homeworld, these creatures hunted in packs. They were bred for aggression and speed. She did not get to finish explaining because the creature suddenly charged at them. Jake moved first. He dove to the left to draw its attention away from the others. Sophie scrambled backward, nearly falling over a root. Helen stood frozen with fear, but Daniel did something completely unexpected. He stood his ground without moving. He took a deep breath and raised his hand. His index finger pointed straight at the charging creature. Daniel's voice was firm and commanding. He said no, then he said sit. His tone was the same one he had used to train his family's dog back on Earth. It was not angry or scared. It was simply authoritative. The voice of someone who expected to be obeyed. The creature skidded to a stop 3 feet from Daniel. Its 3 eyes focused on his raised finger. For a moment that felt like forever, predator and human stared at each other. Daniel did not blink. He did not move. He held his ground with complete confidence. The creature's head tilted slightly as if confused. Then something amazing happened. The creature's back legs slowly lowered. Its body settled down. It sat. Just like a dog on Earth would sit when commanded. The alien predator had obeyed a human voice. Jake breathed out in shock. He asked what the hell just happened. Nobody could answer. They all stared at the sitting creature and at Daniel's outstretched finger. This should not have been possible. Lisa's scanner was going crazy. Numbers and readings flashed across the screen. She said she was picking up pheromone changes in the creature. It was registering Daniel as Pack Alpha. But that made no sense. Daniel was not the same species. He was not even from the same planet. There was no biological mechanism that should allow this to work. Daniel spoke softly while keeping his eyes on the creature. He said it was not about biology. It was about behavior. Humans had been doing this on Earth for thousands of years. Domestication, training, understanding animal psychology well enough to communicate across species barriers. Dogs, horses, cats, birds. Humans had learned to speak the language of body posture, tone, and confidence. He slowly lowered his hand. The creature remained sitting, its head tilted in what might have been curiosity. The aggressive posture was completely gone. Now it looked almost friendly, almost like a pet waiting for the next command. Helen's diplomatic mind started making connections. She realized something important. Humans were the only species in the Unity who had domesticated other predators. Every other alien species either hunted their world's animals to extinction or left them alone. But humans made friends with wolves. They turned the second apex predator on Earth into companions, into helpers, into family members. Sophie was already recording everything with her device. She said the council was watching this right now. They were seeing a human command an alien predator with nothing but body language and tone of voice. This was going to change everything. Daniel took a careful step forward. The creature watched but did not move or show aggression. He extended his hand slowly with his palm facing down in a non-threatening gesture. The creature sniffed his hand cautiously. Then it pressed its head against Daniel's palm like a dog asking for affection. Daniel murmured softly. He said good. He called it a good one. His fingers scratched behind what he hoped were the creature's ears. The hard bony plates were smooth and warm under his touch. The creature made a sound that might have been contentment. The creature's tail had been rigid with aggression just moments before. Now it began to wag back and forth. The movement was jerky and strange, not like a dog's tail exactly. But the meaning was clear. The creature was happy. It had accepted Daniel as its leader. High above in the observation gallery, Ambassador Zixthan watched with growing disbelief. His snake-like body coiled and uncoiled nervously. His translator device barely kept up with his rapid, agitated speech. He kept saying this was not possible. That hunting beast was specifically chosen for its aggression. No species could simply command another's predators. No species except one, apparently. He fell silent as terrible understanding filled his mind. High Chancellor Vormath leaned forward on his observation throne. His mouth parts clicked rapidly, showing he was thinking hard. He spoke slowly. Apex predators do not simply hunt, he said. True apex predators control their entire ecosystem. They shape the behavior of every other species around them. Vormath continued explaining his realization. The humans did not reach the top of their food chain through strength or speed. They did it through dominance. Social dominance. Pack bonding, making allies of potential threats, turning enemies into friends. This was a form of predation the Unity had never encountered before. Another council member spoke up. It was a crystalline being from a silicon-based world. Its voice chimed like glass. It said their initial assessment was incomplete. They had judged humans on physical ability alone, but predation took many forms. The humans conquered their world not by defeating every threat individually. They did it by turning those threats into tools, into weapons, into companions. Back in the biodome, Daniel and his team had made camp near a water source. The young hunting beast lay near the fire they had built. Sophie had nicknamed him Lucky. The name seemed to fit. Lucky occasionally glanced at Daniel as if waiting for commands or seeking approval. Jake sat keeping watch on the perimeter. He said they still had 20 hours left in this test. What would happen when they encountered something bigger? Something that would not respond to dog training tricks? He was worried, but trying to stay practical. Daniel fed another branch into the fire. He said they would do what humans always did. They would adapt. They would outthink their problems. They would survive no matter what came at them. That was the human way. That was why they would succeed. As if his words had summoned danger, a massive roar echoed through the biodome. The sound was deep and threatening. Something huge was moving through the jungle toward their camp, something that made Lucky whimper and press closer to the humans for protection. The young creature was afraid of whatever was coming. Lisa spoke quietly while looking at her scanner. Multiple life signs appeared on the screen. Big ones, and they were hunting. The patterns showed coordination, intelligence, purpose. Whatever was coming, it was not just wandering. It was actively tracking them. The team gathered closer together. The fire cast dancing shadows across the small clearing. The team prepared for whatever was approaching through the dark jungle. Lisa's scanner showed 3 large heat signatures moving in coordinated patterns. This was classic pack hunting behavior. These creatures were working together just like wolves or lions on Earth. Jake reported what he was seeing. They were circling the camp, testing the perimeter, looking for weak points in their defense. His military training helped him read the tactical situation. These were not mindless beasts. They were intelligent hunters following a strategy. Lucky whimpered again. Daniel noticed the young creature's body language had completely changed. Its ears were flat against its head. Its tail was between its legs. Every instinct was screaming for it to run and hide. But Lucky stayed close to the humans. It was seeking protection rather than offering it. Lisa said whatever was out there was higher on the food chain. Lucky recognized them as a threat. These were probably adult versions of whatever Lucky was. Bigger, stronger, more dangerous. The young creature knew it could not fight them. Helen gripped her survival kit tighter. She asked if they could activate the distress beacon. This was not part of the deal. The aliens said survive, not fight off adult predators without weapons. Her voice was shaking. Fear was taking over. Daniel said no firmly. The moment they signaled for help, they would fail. Humanity would fail. They had to show the aliens that humans were not just survivors. They were a species that looked at a world full of creatures that could kill them, and decided to thrive anyway. Giving up was not an option. Sophie was working frantically with her toolkit. She said she had hacked into 3 of the observation sensors. If she could just redirect the power flow, she might be able to create an electromagnetic pulse. Nothing huge, but enough to disorient the predators for a few seconds. Maybe give them time to escape. Daniel interrupted her. He told her to wait. He asked everyone to really look at Lucky. The young hunting beast was trembling with fear. But it had not run away. Despite its terror, despite every predatory instinct telling it to flee, it remained with the humans. It had bonded with them in just a few hours, Lisa whispered in realization. Pack loyalty. Lucky had chosen them as his pack, just like wolves did 12,000 years ago on Earth. The young creature was staying to protect its new family even though it was terrified. This was the same bond that had allowed humans and dogs to survive together for so long. Daniel knelt beside Lucky. He placed his hand on the creature's trembling flank. He spoke softly. He asked if Lucky wanted to protect them, even though he was scared. Even though those things out there were bigger and stronger. Lucky's 3 eyes met Daniel's gaze. Something passed between them. A connection that went beyond words or biology, pure understanding. The young beast stopped trembling. Its ears perked up. Its tail rose from between its legs. The fear was still there, but now there was something else, too. Courage, determination, the willingness to fight for the pack. Helen asked nervously what Daniel was doing. Daniel replied that he was showing the council what humanity really was. He stood and moved to the edge of their firelight. The jungle beyond was dark and threatening, full of danger they could not see clearly. Daniel explained that humans were not predators because they had claws or fangs. They were apex predators because they understood something fundamental about survival, something the other species had missed, something that made humans unique in the galaxy. 3 massive shapes emerged from the darkness. They were fully grown hunting beasts. Each one was easily twice the size of Lucky. Their bony plates were scarred from countless hunts and battles. Their teeth gleamed in the firelight like daggers. These were killing machines. Evolution had spent millions of years creating perfect predators. The team instinctively backed toward the fire. Jake positioned himself between the creatures and Sophie. He had no weapon, but his body could serve as a shield. Helen gripped her thermal blanket like it was armor. Lisa held her scanner in front of her chest as if it could protect her, but Daniel stepped forward toward the predators. He moved away from safety and toward danger. His team gasped, but he did not stop. He stood between the fire and the beasts, between his people and death. Daniel spoke clearly. He said one word, pack. He gestured to Lucky and then to himself and his team. He repeated it. We are pack. His voice was calm and confident. Not aggressive, not afraid. Simply stating a fact. The lead hunting beast paused. It was a scarred veteran with a chunk missing from one of its bony plates. Its nostrils flared as it processed scents. It smelled the juvenile. It smelled the humans. It was trying to understand this strange new configuration. Why was a young one of its kind living with these alien creatures? Lucky stepped forward to stand beside Daniel. The young beast was still afraid. Its body shook slightly, but it held its ground. It was communicating in ways only its own species could understand. Pheromones that humans could not smell. Body language that was too subtle for human eyes. Vocalizations beyond human hearing range. The message Lucky sent was clear to the adults. These humans are my pack. They are under my protection. To attack them is to attack me. It was a bold statement from such a young creature, but it was honest. Lucky meant every bit of it. In the observation gallery high above, the assembled alien dignitaries watched in stunned silence. Ambassador Zixthan's scales had turned almost white. This was a sign of extreme shock in his species. He could barely speak. His voice came out as a whisper through his translator device. Zixthan said this was unprecedented. The human had created a pack bond with a juvenile of his people's companion species in mere hours. And now that bond was protecting them from the adults, this was not natural. This was not possible. Yet he was watching it happen with his own eyes. High Chancellor Vormath replied that this was entirely natural. For humans, anyway. He asked Zixthan a question. How long did it take the Kravoth people to domesticate the hunting beasts? The ambassador's scales rippled with embarrassment. 7 generations, he admitted. Nearly 200 years. Another council member observed the obvious. The human did it in an afternoon. Not through force. Not through genetic manipulation. Through understanding. Through empathy. Through recognizing the social needs of a completely alien species and fulfilling them. Back in the biodome, the standoff continued. The adult hunting beasts were clearly confused. Their juvenile companion had chosen strange, weak-looking creatures as its pack. The logical response would be to kill the interlopers and reclaim the juvenile. That was how nature worked. But pack dynamics were complex. If they attacked, they risked harming the juvenile in the fight. If they left, they would be abandoning one of their own to an unknown fate. The adults were caught between instinct and social bonds. Daniel sensed their hesitation. He slowly reached into his survival kit. He pulled out their emergency food rations. Without taking his eyes off the lead beast, he broke the compressed food bar into pieces. He tossed one piece toward the adult. The food landed a few feet from the creature. Helen hissed at him. She asked what he was doing. That was their food supply. They needed it to survive. Daniel replied quietly that humans did not domesticate wolves by killing them. They did it by feeding them, by sharing resources, by showing that cooperation was more valuable than competition. The lead hunting beast sniffed the offered food. Its eyes never left Daniel. It was assessing this strange creature that showed no fear. That commanded its juvenile with nothing but presence and will. That now offered food instead of fighting. The beast took the food. It ate the piece quickly. Then it looked at Daniel again, waiting to see what would happen next. Daniel tossed another piece. Then another. Each time the beast took the offering. Slowly, cautiously. It was being drawn into humanity's oldest trick. The social contract. Food for peace. Resources for cooperation. The other 2 adult beasts watched. They saw their pack leader accepting food from the human. This was unusual behavior. But their leader was making a choice. Trust was being built piece by piece. Literally. Jake watched in amazement as the deadly predators that had been circling their camp moments ago now sat in a rough semicircle. They were accepting food from Daniel's hand. This was insane. They were having a picnic with alien murder machines, Lisa corrected him. Not insane, she said. This was how humanity conquered Earth. Not through superior strength. Through superior social intelligence, humans turned every threat into an ally, every predator into a partner. It was the human way. Sophie looked at her unfinished electromagnetic weapon. She slowly put the tools away. She said softly that humans brought their most powerful tool to the stars, and it was not technology, it was not weapons. It was their ability to make friends with anything, with anyone, with any species no matter how different. As the artificial sun of the biodome began to rise, simulating a new day, Daniel sat among the hunting beasts. It looked like a shepherd among his flock. Lucky had curled up beside him, completely relaxed now. The adults maintained a respectful distance. But they clearly accepted this strange new pack dynamic. The test still had hours remaining. But Daniel knew they had already passed. Not by surviving, by thriving. by turning a death sentence into an alliance, by showing that humans were not just another predator species. They were something unique, something the galaxy had. The council chamber was packed with representatives from every member species of the galactic unity. Word of what happened in the biodome had spread through the station like fire. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Daniel and his team stood once more on the platform for visitors, but this time the atmosphere was different. Instead of contempt, there was something closer to wary respect in the eyes of the assembled aliens. High Chancellor Vormath addressed the assembly. His translator device converted his clicks and chirps into dozens of languages at once. He said they had witnessed something unprecedented in the history of the galactic unity. The humans, whom many dismissed as prey species, had demonstrated a form of apex predation that they did not recognize. They had not encountered it before because no other species in the galaxy possessed this ability. Ambassador Zixthan rose from his seat. His scales were still pale, but his voice was steady. As representative of the Kravoth Empire, he had to formally acknowledge what they all saw. The humans did not merely survive the challenge. They created a pack bond with juvenile hunting beasts in hours, a process that took his people generations to accomplish. They then extended that bond to adult specimens through nothing but behavioral understanding and resource sharing. A massive bear-like creature from the Ursan Collective lumbered to its feet. Its voice was deep and rumbling. It said that pack bonding was not unique. Many species formed social groups. What made the humans different? Why should this matter? Dr. Lisa Chen stepped forward. Her scientific mind was eager to explain. She asked if she could speak. Chancellor Vormath gestured his approval. Lisa's nervousness showed, but her voice was clear. Lisa began her explanation. Every species in this chamber evolved as apex predators through different strategies. The Kravoth through venom and coordinated hunting, the Ursan through size and strength, the Varathi through armored defense and never giving up. But humans evolved through something unique: extreme social plasticity, the ability to form bonds with almost any species. She activated her handheld device. Images projected into the chamber's display system. Pictures from Earth showing humans throughout history. On Earth, humans were not the strongest, fastest, or most naturally armed. They survived through cooperation, but not just with other humans. They formed relationships with multiple species. Dogs for hunting and security, cats for pest control, horses for transportation, birds for companionship, even tiny microorganisms in their digestive systems. The display showed more images: shepherds with their flocks of sheep, riders with their horses, sailors with ship cats, falconers with their birds of prey. In every image, humans were working alongside other creatures, building relationships across species lines. Lisa continued. Humans did not just form packs, they formed meta-packs, multi-species alliances based on mutual benefit. It was encoded in human psychology. Humans anthropomorphized. They attributed human emotions and intelligence to other species. Not because they were foolish, but because it allowed them to predict behavior and build relationships across vast biological differences. A crystalline being chimed in. Its voice resonated like struck glass. It said this suggested humans were not apex predators in the traditional sense. They were something more complex. Apex social engineers, species that engineered social bonds instead of tools. Daniel stepped beside Lisa. He said exactly. Humans did not climb to the top of Earth's food chain by defeating every other predator. They did it by recruiting them. Every domesticated animal on Earth represented a former threat that became an ally. And now humans were here, offering to do the same with the galaxy. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Different species made different sounds, but all of them were engaged now. All of them were paying attention. Helen Martinez saw her opening. Her diplomatic training kicked in. This was the moment to seal the deal. Helen addressed the delegates. The galactic unity was founded on the principle of strength through diversity. Each species brought unique capabilities to the collective. The Kravoth provided military strategy. The Urson offered industrial might. The Vorathi contributed advanced materials science. What humanity offered was the ability to bridge species divides, to find common ground where none seemed to exist, to turn potential conflicts into partnerships. She gestured to the observation feeds. They were replaying footage from the biodome. What you saw was not just survival, Helen said. It was proof of concept. If humans could form meaningful bonds with creatures that evolved on different worlds with completely alien biology, imagine what they could contribute to cooperation within the unity itself. Ambassador Zixthan's scales had begun to return to their normal color. He spoke up. The human spoke truth. The unity had faced internal conflicts for decades. Trade disputes, territory disagreements, cultural misunderstandings. Perhaps a species specialized in cross-cultural bridge building was exactly what they needed. But the Urson delegate was not convinced yet. His voice rumbled with suspicion. Could they trust humans? They manipulated. They formed bonds to serve their purposes. Was this not simply predation by other means? Just a different kind of hunting? Commander. Jake Peterson had remained silent throughout the proceedings. Now he spoke. His voice was firm. Yes, he said. And that was the point. Everyone turned to look at the security chief. He continued with his military bearing evident in every word. Jake explained that every species here was a predator. They all reached the stars by being the most successful hunters on their worlds. But predation was not just about killing, it was about surviving, thriving, passing on genes and culture to the next generation. Humans just found a different path to the same goal. They made allies instead of enemies. They built networks instead of territories. They created cooperation instead of dominance. He looked around the chamber. His eyes met the gazes of various delegates. He asked them if they wanted to know if they could trust humans. Then he asked them to consider this. In the biodome, humans were unarmed, outnumbered, and facing creatures specifically chosen to test their survival instincts. They could have used the distress beacon. They could have tried to kill the hunting beasts. Instead, they fed them. They protected their juvenile. They chose cooperation over conflict, even when their lives were at stake. That was not manipulation. That was who humans were at their core. Sophie Brooks, the youngest of the human delegation, added her voice. She said humans were engineers of relationships. It was in human nature to look at any system, any interaction, and ask how they could make it work better. Whether it was a machine, a computer program, or a relationship between species, humans saw the potential for harmony where others saw only conflict. High Chancellor Vormath let the silence stretch. He was considering everything he had heard. Finally he spoke. His voice carried authority. The galactic unity faced challenges from within and without. Internal divisions threatened their unity. External forces probed their borders. They had relied on military might and technological superiority to maintain their position in the galaxy. But perhaps they had overlooked a crucial element of true strength. Unity not through dominance, but through genuine cooperation. He turned to face the human delegation directly. He spoke each of their names. Captain Daniel Harris, Dr. Lisa Chen, Commander Jake Peterson, Diplomat Helen Martinez, Engineer Sophie Brooks. On behalf of the galactic unity, he extended an offer of provisional membership to humanity. They would have one standard year to demonstrate that their species' unique talents could benefit the greater community. If they succeeded, full membership would be granted. If they failed, Earth would be restricted to its home system for no less than 1 century. Daniel felt the weight of that decision. 1 year to prove humanity's worth to an entire galaxy. But as he looked at his team, at the assembled aliens watching with skepticism and hope mixed together, he felt something unexpected. Confidence. They could do this. Humanity could prove itself. Daniel accepted the offer. He said humanity would show the unity what they were truly capable of. Not through conquest or conflict, through the bonds they forged and the bridges they built, through friendship and cooperation, through proving that different species could work together for mutual benefit. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Different species argued among themselves. Some were excited, others were worried. A few were actively hostile to the idea, but the decision was made. Humans would have their chance. 1 year to change the galaxy. Ambassador Zixthan approached the human delegation after the formal session ended. His scales had fully returned to their normal coloration. His voice carried genuine curiosity now instead of hostility. He asked Daniel about the juvenile hunting beast he had bonded with in the biodome. Did he know what became of it? Daniel smiled. Lucky was in the Aurora's cargo bay. He had requested permission to bring the creature with them. He hoped that was not a problem. The bond they had formed was real. Lucky had chosen humans as his pack. It would be cruel to separate them now. Zixthan's scales rippled with what might have been amusement. Of course Daniel did that. Humans and their pack-bonding instincts. They could not help but collect companions wherever they went. It was in their nature to form attachments, to make friends with everything they eat. The Unity Central Station had changed dramatically in the 12 months since humanity's provisional acceptance. The transformation was subtle but real. It touched every aspect of life aboard the massive structure. Captain Daniel Harris walked through corridors that once felt hostile. Now they felt familiar and even welcoming. Lucky padded beside him, now fully grown but still devoted to his human companion. The hunting beast wore a vest marked with Unity symbols. He was officially a security companion, though everyone knew he was really just Daniel's friend. They passed a common area where human children played with Kravoth hatchlings. Parents from both species watched together. A year ago, such a scene would have been impossible to imagine. Now it was becoming routine, normal, expected even. A young Urson cub waved one massive paw in greeting. He asked if Lucky was coming to the playgroup today. Daniel smiled and said maybe later. They had a council meeting first. The final judgment was today. The fact that an Urson cub had a human name was another small victory. Marcus had chosen it himself after learning about human culture. Cultural exchange was flowing in both directions now, creating something new and unprecedented in galactic history. The council chamber where humanity's fate would be decided was crowded with observers. The past year had been carefully documented. Every human initiative had been scrutinized by the member species. Daniel knew the verdict could go either way. Success was not guaranteed just because they had worked hard. His team had scattered across Unity space during the probationary period. Each person contributed in their unique ways. Lisa Chen had established the first cross-species xenobiology institute. She trained researchers from a dozen worlds in her methods of behavioral analysis. Her work had already prevented 3 potential disasters with newly discovered species. First contact situations that could have gone terribly wrong were handled peacefully instead. Jake Peterson had changed Unity security protocols completely. He introduced concepts of calming situations down instead of escalating them, community policing instead of military occupation. Crime rates on Unity stations had dropped by 30%. Not because of more force, but because of better relationships between security forces and civilian populations. Helen Martinez had become the Unity's chief diplomatic mediator. She resolved conflicts that had festered for decades. Her secret was simple. She treated every dispute not as a zero-sum game, but as an opportunity for both sides to win. The Vorathi crystalline trade war that threatened to split the Unity had been resolved through her work. She turned competitors into partners. Sophie Brooks had done something even more remarkable. She created a translation system that went beyond mere words. It captured context, emotion, and cultural nuance. Misunderstandings that had plagued communication between species for centuries were becoming things of the past. People could finally really understand each other, but the most significant change was not in any specific program. It was in the atmosphere of the Unity itself. Humans had introduced something that had been missing: casual friendship between different species, not just working together, but actually enjoying each other's company. High Chancellor Vormath called the assembly to order. His mouthparts clicked with what Daniel had learned to recognize as satisfaction. 1 year ago, they granted humanity provisional membership. The decision was controversial. Many questioned whether a species that achieved status through social manipulation rather than physical dominance, deserved a place among them. Today they would render their final judgment. The chamber fell silent. Daniel felt Lucky press against his leg. The hunting beast was offering comfort. Even the animal sensed the importance of this moment. Everything came down to what happened in the next few minutes. Ambassador Zixthon rose first. The Kravoth Empire voted in favor of full membership. The humans had demonstrated that predation took many forms, and theirs might be the most advanced of all. They did not conquer through force. They conquered through friendship, and in doing so they made everyone stronger. The Ursan collective representative stood next. They voted in favor. Their youth learned from human teachers not through fear but through genuine respect and affection. This was a gift they did not know they needed. But now that they had it, they could not imagine going back. One by one, the representatives voiced their approval. Even species that had initially been most skeptical acknowledged humanity's contributions. The humans had earned their place. The vote was unanimous. Not a single dissenting voice. High Chancellor Vormath's voice resonated with authority. It was decided. Humanity was granted full membership in the galactic unity. Welcome, humans. Welcome to your new home among the stars. The words were simple, but their meaning was profound. Earth was no longer alone. Humanity had joined something greater than itself. The chamber erupted in sounds of approval. Each species expressed celebration in their own way. Clicks, roars, chimes, and musical tones blended into a chorus of acceptance. It was beautiful in its diversity, a symphony of different voices united in common purpose. Daniel felt emotion welling up inside him. He thought of Earth, of all the struggles humanity had faced to reach this moment. From the first humans who looked at wolves and saw not enemies but potential friends, to the scientists and engineers who built the ships that carried them to the stars. Every generation had contributed to this achievement. Later, at the celebration gathering, Daniel found himself surrounded by representatives from various species. All of them were eager to share their experiences with humans over the past year. Stories of friendship, collaboration, and mutual discovery filled the air. The mood was joyful and hopeful. A young Kravoth approached cautiously. Her scales gleamed with youth. She wanted to thank Daniel. Her clutchmate was one of the hatchlings in the integration program. She said her sibling was not afraid of other species anymore. She wanted to be an ambassador when she grew up. She wanted to build bridges like the humans did. Daniel knelt to be at eye level with the young alien. He said that was wonderful. The galaxy needed more ambassadors, more people willing to build bridges instead of walls, more beings who saw possibilities instead of problems. The Kravoth asked if it was true that on Earth, humans used to be afraid of creatures like Lucky, that they turned their greatest predators into their best friends. Her voice was filled with wonder at the idea. Daniel glanced at Lucky. The hunting beast was currently surrounded by a mixed group of alien children, all of them giggling as they tried to pet his bony plates. The creature that had been bred for aggression was now patient and gentle. He allowed even the smallest beings to climb on his back. Daniel confirmed it was true. Thousands of years ago, humans and wolves were competitors. Both were top predators fighting for the same resources. But some humans and some wolves made a different choice. They chose cooperation over competition. That choice changed both species forever. Wolves became dogs, humanity's faithful companions, and humans gained an ally that helped them survive and thrive. The young Kravoth's eyes widened with understanding. She said humans were doing it again. With all of them. With every species in the unity. Building friendships and alliances one connection at a time. Daniel smiled and said that was exactly the plan. One friendship at a time, one connection at a time, one bridge at a time, until the whole galaxy was linked together in a web of cooperation and mutual support. Lisa Chen joined him carrying 2 drinks. She handed one to Daniel and gestured at the mixed crowd of humans and aliens mingling freely throughout the celebration space. She said something was remarkable. A year ago, most of these species had never interacted socially. They worked together out of necessity, but there was no joy in it. No genuine connection. Look at them now, she was right. Everywhere Daniel looked, he saw not just tolerance, but genuine friendship. An Ursan and a crystalline being were engaged in animated conversation. Their translator devices captured not just words, but the warmth behind them. A group of humans and Varathi were sharing a meal, each sampling foods from the other's culture with curiosity rather than suspicion. Jake Peterson approached with Sophie Brooks. The engineer was excitedly showing her latest translation device improvement to several interested aliens. They gathered around her like students around a teacher, eager to learn and understand. Jake said simply that they did it. They actually did it. Helen Martinez joined the group and added that they had help. Every species here contributed. Humans just showed them what was possible. They opened the door to a new way of thinking about relationships between species. Ambassador Zixthon made his way through the crowd to the human delegation. His scales were a vibrant, healthy color, a stark contrast to the pale shock of their first meeting. He wanted to speak with Daniel about something. There was a newly discovered species on the rim worlds. They were primitive but showed signs of developing space travel soon. First contact protocol suggested observing from a distance, but he wondered if perhaps a human perspective might be valuable in establishing initial relations. He was asking for human help in welcoming a new species to the galaxy. Daniel felt a surge of excitement. This was it, the real test, not just integrating into the Unity, but helping to expand it, helping to welcome